Hello, my soul-seeking friends. It's Shanna. Thank you so much for listening to Sense of Soul podcast. Enlightening conversations with like-minded souls from around the world, sharing their journey of finding their light within, turning pain into purpose, and awakening to their true sense of soul. If you like what you hear, show me some love and rate, like, and subscribe. And consider becoming a Sense of Soul Patreon member, where you will get ad-free episodes, monthly circles, and much more. Now go grab your coffee, open your mind, heart, and soul. It's time to awaken. In this episode of Sense of Soul, I'll be chatting with Susan Grua, an internationally celebrated soul healer, a life coach, celebrity reader, and intuitive medium. Susan has over 30 years of experience in both professional and spiritual practices. She has been featured in documentaries, publications, special events such as Gwyneth Paltrow's GOOP. And Susan is also a Hay House author. And in her new book, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, Susan deep dives into the soul's journey, offering insights into healing from grief and the afterlife. It combines Susan's personal narratives, reflective guidance, and practical exercises designed to help the readers identify spiritual blocks, navigate personal challenges, and uncover their life's and soul's purpose. Susan today is joining us to share with us her wealth of heartfelt guidance and insight. So please welcome Susan. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. Nice to meet you.
Hi, Shannon. It's nice to meet you also.
I was looking at your stuff this morning. You talk a lot about the Clair senses, and I do too, because I find it almost common sense. And maybe we all learn differently. We understand things differently. Our brains are like that.
Yes. Well, and I think, for us, we're constantly trying to make sense of our senses.
Yeah,
And
so true.
instead of
Sense of
just
soul.
allowing them to be what they are
Yeah.
and then flowing into them, we're trying to figure them out with our thinking. And our thinking is so distorted by our humanness that our thinking
Yes.
doesn't have clarity. And so when we're trying to make sense up here, we can't figure it out. When we're trying to make sense in our soul, it comes very readily and easily because our souls are never damaged. Our souls are the direct connection to the spirit world. And when I hear people say we have soul wounds, I always shudder inside
Oh,
because I tell them, where would you go internally or externally for that matter, because nobody else would be healed. If you had some
yeah.
brokenness and needed to be healed, truly healed, where would you go if your soul, and it's an inside
Yeah.
job, right? If your soul's damaged,
Right.
where would you go? So, and also that vine,
Right.
that connection to the spirit world, I call it the vine to the soul. That flow, that easy flow would be broken because there would be so much brokenness. So when I think about the Clair senses or our senses, I always talk about that. We just have to drop into that soul source and get out of our head because this is full of a gunk of the world. It doesn't go with us when we leave. And that's the good news. Your heart has 40,000 neurons. And the beauty of that is that it carries memory and learning capacity. So when you're leaving your body, your soul or your heart is going with your soul because that's where your soul seats. And
Right.
so that goes, not all this crap that we pick up every single thing unconsciously that happens in our journey.
Yeah.
Just be in your senses and experience
Mhm.
everything from that place, that space and time.
And what's hilarious is we like, I know for myself anyways, I wanted to be big my whole life.
Yeah, me too. Me too. I wanted to be a mommy. I wanted to grow up and be a
Right.
mommy and I'd be
Okay.
satisfied. And they took me, I am a mommy by adoption, but they took me down a completely different road on my journey.
Wow. Yeah, tell me about that. How did you land into being a medium?
Well, I think I always was. My mother had this gift, and my sister and my brother had this gift. And the only thing I remember about being little tiny, like 3 years old, was
Hmm.
seeing animals float when they would pass away. So if we had an animal pass away, I'd see it float. And we had land, so we had cats and things like that. Unfortunately, went to their maker and creator. And
Yeah.
unfortunately for me, not for them.
Yeah.
But at 4.5 years old, almost 5, I was locked in an
Mhm.
unplugged freezer in a garage, and
Oh
I
my
had a
gosh.
very profound experience. And when I came back from that, I could see people everywhere. They were under
Mm.
my bed in the corner of my room down the hallway. They were inundating me with beauty, but I didn't know. So I thought they were the boogeyman. I was super young, right? And I would put the blankets over my head and say, go away, go away, go away. And I think they
Yeah.
recognized very quickly, oh, we're scaring her. But we have things to teach her about her near-death experience. And so I think that they would come back again. My memory is that they would, as little, and what we
Mhm.
perceive as a little child is somewhat different. But I remember them coming back again and again and again. And then pretty soon it morphed into, I just died. This is my name. Please wake up. I need my family to know something. And then I'd get a call that so-and-so's brother, sister's friend died. And how they died was the same. The name was the same. And so I would give this message. Ultimately, I became a grief addiction therapist because I wanted to help people. And that led me into mediumship, just in
Yeah.
a really weird way. My own
Wow.
losses, as I would lose people, especially in tragic ways, it would expand. And I have 2 brothers and a mother that committed suicide. And my mother was older and she died from complications of that, but my brothers were young. And so as, those things occurred, it would expand. And I would get more in contact and feel more energy. And it just kept going and going. Here I am.
So did you have any kind of like religious spiritual background to begin with?
When I was a little girl, I was Catholic, but when I received this gift, and my mother was, well, they actually locked my mom up for a couple weeks, thinking she was crazy, so she never spoke about it. She was very frightened of it. But when I received, the extensive part of the gift, my family walked away from the Catholic Church, feeling that they weren't supportive of what was happening in our family and what we were going through, and some other things. So it just stopped. It was just abrupt. Went from, we believe in God, we believe in, Jesus, we believe in Catholicism, to we believe in nothing except God
Mhm.
and Jesus.
Wow.
And so there was no belief system outside of that. And so I grew
Oh,
up more just knowing. But when you're on the other side, you just know anyway. You just know. You sense them, you feel them, you interact in a way that is very unhuman like. You have a sense all the time that they're there. I was crossed
right.
over by the angelic realm, and I was shown so many beautiful things, and I had nothing to verify it. So to me, it was just information. But as I got older and things started occurring, I went, oh, verification. And one of the books,
Yeah.
Conversations with God, gave me that. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm, from Catholic as well. I'm a recovering Catholic.
Yeah.
But there's still this belief system about certain things.
Hmm.
So when I read the Bible with new eyes, I mean, I was like, whoa, holy moly, this is literally holy moly. I'm like,
Yeah.
wait a minute, are angels aliens? This sounds very similar, to abductions and visitations. And as well, I saw that other people were thinking the same. But however, before, like Archangel Michael was a huge one in the beginning. So these visions of these beautiful, like angel-like beings were at the height of all of my meditations or in my dreams that were telling. And then you talk to someone else who has more of like an extraterrestrial, and they didn't have that deeply rooted Catholicism in them. And they're seeing more galactic and having more galactic experiences. And I question whether they're the same, or are we attracting, because of the energy that we're seeped in,
I think
different
it's
energy.
both. It's
Mhm.
both. And honestly, I believe they come as we understand them.
Oh, okay, there you go. That's beautiful. That's
So if you're,
perfect
especially if you're
understanding.
young, but they present themselves so that we understand. So whatever our belief system is. So I don't
Mhm.
think they're one or the other or all. I think they're all
Right.
and every. I think that would be
Yeah.
a better way to state it. They're everything and
Hmm.
they are all things. And
Right.
so when we need them to come in a way that we understand, they're going to come that way. A
Yeah.
child that's raised with Catholicism is not going to understand a galactic being. They're going to be terrified, but they will understand an angelic presence being near them. And so as I understand them, and what they showed me, of course, then was the angelic energy.
Yeah. And then you find out what angels are described at, in the Bible, and you're like, whoa, they're not Campbell Soup kids. I mean, wow. And then they always say, fear not, Mary, I don't want to scare the crap out of you, because obviously they probably, didn't look exactly like we envisioned them through the art that was depicted. But the energy of it is still very soft. I mean, Archangel Michael he's such a familiar energy to me. But this is also someone I called on my entire life, for protection. I mean, every time I lose something, I'm calling on St. Anthony, and it works.
Yeah. Well, and however you decide to name them, they also flow with that.
Yeah.
How you understand
Oh.
them in every way. So children have a tendency to see Archangel Michael when they cross. They tend to see Mother Mary when they cross. I work with NDEs and children, and I see that. It's a common theme. And people
Wow.
don't talk about that
Amazing.
necessarily, but it's definitely a
Yeah.
common theme. In near-death experiences, absolutely. When I work with adults, the adults have a different view because they've had more life experience. And so, even their soul memories and their heart memories are very different. So they have a different view of it, but it's the same view. They just compartmentalize it differently, or they
They have the words
realize
to,
it.
yeah.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But children need to feel safe much more so than an adult. Crossing over, they're not in that same fear because they understand it differently, or they've heard more about it throughout their life journey, or they've had, prayers and connected in dreams and things like that, where children don't have a lot of experience with death. I didn't
Right.
understand death.
Yeah.
I didn't know what I was seeing. So I think that makes a difference.
That's very interesting. So I have 4 kids. My
Wow.
youngest daughter, the first 5 years of her life, I lost like the closest people to me. One of my best friends, my dad, my grandma, an aunt. I mean, just so many people. She constantly saw me in a state of grief.
Yeah.
So much that when she was like 4 or 5, I can't remember, I think probably like 4, she's like, I'm going to miss you when you go. I mean, she
Oh,
just thought everyone just goes. But what's interesting is it created a different human. I mean, she's
mm-hmm.
totally different because she sees the world through this spiritual from
Lens.
the get-go, right? Because this was her experience her whole life. And she's very spiritual now, that even still.
Yeah. But and then you look back at what you just said, this was her experience. So they
It
come as we
was.
experience and understand. We have
Yeah.
knowledge, that maybe we wouldn't know why we have it. I mean, that goes on throughout our journey, where you think,
Right.
how did I know that? It feels right, it sounds right, but how did that come to me? So they're always
Yeah.
downloading in us. But with the angels, they're very pure. So angels are
Hmm.
the pure love of the spirit world. And
Hmm.
even though they can fight for us and protect us and all those things, they have a purity of soul that is beyond anything else in the spirit world, outside of, I would say, animals. They're
Hmm.
pure. They don't have
Yeah.
motives. They're not looking for a
Right.
motive to be loved and a motive to help and a motive. They're not looking for that. They are simply
Yeah.
there with pure love to offer us. And so they don't think in the terms that we do as humans. And we want to put human emotions and feelings on the spirit world, which doesn't work. It doesn't work because that brain
Yeah.
isn't there that we
Right.
think is.
Yeah. But do you find that there's like archetypes though when it comes to, the different energies anyways that we can group them into to that? Like, of course, like we were just saying, Archangel Michael has a very protective energy. And if children want to feel safe and protected, that would make sense to me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. However, you learned about Archangel Michael with a religious connotation.
Hmm.
And so he would
It's based
be
on my
that
beliefs.
exactly that. It's a gift you were given.
Hmm.
It's a knowledge base that they wanted you to have, obviously, because you were born
Yeah.
into that knowledge and grown with that knowledge. So I think that regardless of their position
Mm.
in the spirit world, they are still pure in love. They don't have
Mhm.
motives for themselves. And
For
that to me
themselves.
is a purity of love.
We should
When
all
you're
try and
doing
be like
something,
that.
exactly, exactly. And it's really hard with the brain. It's really
It is
hard because
really
we
hard with the
we want
brain.
what we
So
want
hard.
when we want it. Um,
Yes.
and we want people to be who we want them to be. So we're comfortable in our
Yeah.
skin. I think that's
Yeah.
why people try to stop people from grieving. They try to fix
Mhm.
them because they're having discomfort with their discomfort,
Yeah.
the other person's discomfort.
That's
So
so
I tell
true.
people, get comfortable with the uncomfortable. I find, when people call mediums,
Mm.
grief vampires, they love to call us grief vampires. And my answer to that is always, we are, because we are literally
Mhm.
sucking in the power of the grief in front of us. It's the very
Yeah.
opposite of what they see it as. They see it as, we're going after the grief people and sticking our, fangs in them, trying to harm them. And I'm trying to tell them, no, we're taking it all in. We're just, it's coming in and we're having to
Mhm.
move through that with the knowledge that there is trauma sitting in front of us and pain, and their souls are literally right here. And the soul of the spirit world's right here. And we have a huge responsibility to be authentic and have integrity and character. And if we don't know, we don't know, and we don't need to be right. And our ego has to be out of it. I mean, there's so much to it, and it's so hard. And yet so rewarding when someone stands up and says, I came in here not believing, and I leave knowing my child's with me, and I believe, and my pain has lessened in some strange way. And
Mhm.
so I think in the future, the wave will be mediums. I think it's happening already. Mediums will be great grief workers and grief therapists. It will be where people go to handle their grief, along with, of course, the traditional way that people do it. And when you combine those two, I see people heal so much more readily and
Yeah.
with less strife, not
Mhm.
necessarily quickly, because grief decides when it's done with you. You don't decide when you're done with it. So I have no idea how quickly they'll get through their grief, but it's more
Right.
readily done, more smoothly.
Like closure.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a
If you're
perfect
grieving too
word.
long, sometimes you can't move on.
I think not just closure, but
Mm.
honestly, grief of not knowing what happened, not knowing, the
Mm.
suffering, not knowing if they did it
Right.
on purpose or, was it an
True.
accident? These questions are huge, especially to
Yeah.
a mother, especially to a mother or father.
Mhm.
So we're able to give enough evidence if we're good mediums.
Mhm.
I think without evidence, there's nothing. So
Yeah.
are able to give enough evidence that they know they're there. Then when they're asking those questions, they believe and trust. And it's
Mhm.
so important for us not to want to fix the mother or father,
Mm.
because
Good
I want
point.
to. And I tell
Yeah,
them
I
that I
know.
want to make you feel better. I want to fix you
Yeah.
right now, but I can't. I have to stay in my connection and give you truth. So if you ask that question, be sure that you want the true answer. Because once
Oh,
I
yeah,
ask
that's
it, I have to
hard.
be in that authentic truth.
Mm. So I met with a good friend of mine who I've known for her oldest daughter and my oldest son. So 27 years they are, well, they were. So I met with her for coffee the other day. So her daughter was in college and her other daughter was in high school. And her daughter, who was in high school, I think she was 16, and she took her own life. And her other daughter was just about ready to graduate from college. And she came home because, you know, she was grieving too and wanted to be with her mom and dad. And she got in a car accident and she died.
Oh,
So here, my friend, mother of two beautiful girls, and then all of a sudden grieving both of them.
it's
So
unbearable.
heartbreaking.
Unbearable.
Yeah, yeah, I
Unbearable. And I
just
don't
no
care
words.
what our belief system is, it doesn't matter. If they're not physically tangible to our humanness, then the loss is tremendous. It's beyond reason. It's beyond anything except for just this
Hmm.
dark cloud of pain. And,
Hmm.
as of course, time goes on, we learn to manage and maneuver through that cloud instead of fighting it and trying to
Yeah.
get away from it. And then we manage to laugh in that cloud, and we manage to move in a direction of a little bit of joy in that cloud. And as we
Mhm.
do those things, that's a higher vibration. And so that cloud starts to become maybe a shadow,
Mhm.
but it never is gone.
Yeah. I can't even imagine. That's
Mhm.
always been like my worst fear, is losing a child or dying when they were young. That was always another fear. And I don't I don't see death in the same, I've talked to so many people about the other side, and I know it's not the end, it's just transition and, losing so many people and learning not to be attached.
Yes. And I have this little saying that I really love, and there's a reason. I'll explain that to this conversation, but I say what we fear we feed, what we feed we perceive, and what we perceive becomes our reality. And what I mean by that is not that we necessarily create it, but more importantly, we're already living in the trauma of it and it's not even happened. So it
Mm.
becomes our reality in the moment. So as you're feeling that fear of losing a child, you're already in that pain, even though it hasn't happened. You're feeling it, and that terror, an overwhelmed sense. And so we're living in that thought process instead of in the reality that they're actually here at this moment. And it may only last a nanosecond, but it's still, we're in it. And so
Yeah.
that gives us the ability to have
Mm.
compassion and some form of, I don't want to say understanding, but some form of knowledge of that loss so that
Yeah.
we can be there for the people that, like your friend, the people that we love and care about in a different
Yeah.
kind of way. So we're meant to have those fears. That is a gift from the spirit world also. We're meant to
Mm.
have some of those. Now, where we take it, obviously, if we live in that 24/7, we're not doing healthy. But we're
No.
meant to have moments of that so we have more clarity and understanding of that reality. Yeah.
Mm. You're so right. And I think also I have all my children. I feel guilty when I tell stories of my alive children. And of course, she
Yeah.
asks, how's your children? How's your kids doing?
Yes. And I think it's extremely important for us to remember that they want to be treated as normal. And
I'm
so when
sure.
they're asking those questions, they don't want anyone to hold back. They don't
Yes.
want to be singled out. They don't want to be
Mhm.
different. They don't want to be less than or have people that care about them be afraid to be in their presence because they
Yeah.
might slip. When I talk to people who are in that kind of grief, they say to me, the worst part is I'm treated completely different and people stay away from me because they
No.
fear, right? And
Yes.
there we are again with that fear base. They fear upsetting me. They fear saying the wrong thing. And
Mhm.
it's terrible feeling. And so they're so
Mhm.
lonely in it. And grief is singular
Yeah.
anyway. We're alone in our own personal journey of grief because we have a personal relationship with the person we've lost that no one else has. So, and then
Mhm.
here, everyone around us starts moving away from us. And I just know this from my own experience too. They don't
Mhm.
know what to say. So they never talked about my brothers. And I wanted so bad
Oh,
to hear about their
right.
brothers and be treated normal.
Yeah.
And you already feel, especially with suicide, you already feel
Mhm.
that people are judging and what's wrong with
Right.
them that they lost, what did they do wrong? These are the feelings we have. And then I realized as I was writing my book, I realized that I was in judgment of me. It wasn't just me
Right.
worried about them. I was asking the question, what did I do wrong? Why didn't they call me? Didn't I tell them I loved them enough? I was doing
Yeah.
that. What was wrong with my family?
Mhm.
All of those things came to the forefront. So I was in the worst form of judgment.
She did something I've never seen before. When she lost her second child, she had sent out a picture of her and her sister and just thank you for being there for me and supporting me. And please don't stay away. The last thing I want is to be alone in this. We already are feeling very alone. So it would be wonderful. Don't be afraid to contact
Yeah.
us at this
Yes.
time.
Yes. And how brave of them to do that. because so many people lose people. So that's very brave.
I
Takes a
know.
lot of bravery to be on this planet, doesn't it?
Oh, so much bravery.
Mhm.
And, yeah, one of the things, well, after she lost her first daughters, she really wanted to connect spiritually. She wanted to open herself up, and she knew she's a super smart woman, super smart. She knew that grief would be so heavy that it could block maybe even the opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. I had this little theory that I created in my mind, and I think of the sloth, the beautiful
Oh,
sloth,
I love
right?
the sloth.
Love them,
My favorite
right? But
animal. Hmm.
very high in frequency, very low in human vibration or the
Yeah.
world vibration, right? They move extremely slow.
Yeah.
And the medium is like the butterfly. We don't move in the highest vibration, but we're moving in a higher
Mhm.
vibrating level because of our experiences and our ability to connect. And the spirit world is like the hummingbird. And so by the time the sloth in grief, which grief,
Mhm.
anger, hatred are the lowest of vibrational energies we can be in. So in grief, by the time that sloth has the ability to turn, because they're so slow in
Mhm.
vibration, not frequency, but vibration, and
Right.
see that hummingbird moving, they've gone 60, 70 places or more. So they
Mhm.
miss so much of it. So they tell me, why can't I see my child? And I try to explain that to them, that that's what's happening, where the medium is not vibrating in the grief, number one. And we've had some ability to learn how to connect in a different way on that frequency or that vibration.
Oh my
So,
God.
they say to me, "Oh my, that makes so much sense to me. That makes so much sense. I understand now why I'm not seeing everything," because they think they're not visiting
Mhm.
them. And then they say, "Well, when I'm dreaming, why don't I see them all the time?" And I said, "If I told you that if you got in bed and fell asleep, that you would see your child or your husband or whoever it is every time, you'd never get out of bed."
No.
So they're very selective when they come.
Mhm.
So, and that's the reason. It's not because they don't love them. It's not because they don't want to share with them or talk to them. It's because they have to be selective, or we would never, even if I just said, if every time you sit in that spot, you'd never get up, you'd
Yeah,
want to be with them, so
forever.
they have to select in order for us to continue doing life.
And I love the sloth and the butterfly and the hummingbird. So true. I love how you can learn through nature in this way. Nature is like such a great teacher, and animals. When I lost my dad, it was right before Father's Day. And I was like, oh, Father's Day sucks from now on.
Yeah,
Sorry,
yeah.
to my partner. But my oldest daughter calls me outside to the backyard, and I'm like, okay. So I go out there. There was a swarm, like hundreds of dragonflies in my backyard. I mean, and
Unreal.
they were landing on us, touching us, hitting us. I mean, it was the most magical thing I've ever experienced before.
Mhm.
And we were laughing and dancing around them. And it was, I mean, my daughter ended up even getting a tattoo of a dragonfly because it was like such an amazing experience.
Mhm.
And actually, so the dragonfly, I end up finding out, is a representation of death. You probably know this. And I
Yes.
bought a book for my daughter, my youngest, and it was about how the dragonfly is in the water, inside the water,
Mhm.
when it's just born or whatever. And as you become, ready to become a dragonfly, you go up to the surface towards the light. And the little dragonfly says, when you go up there to his friend, come back down and tell us, what's going on. Why is everyone going up there and not coming back? And that one goes up there and sees the light and gets its wings and flies, and sees everybody else they'd been missing and doesn't want to go back down, even to tell his friend. He's like,
Mhm.
he'll get here eventually. We'll just wait for him. But I loved how there was this connection. People in many cultures have stories of, watching nature and learning from nature about transition.
Yes. Yes. And I think that nature is our greatest gift
Mm.
It truly is.
Oh,
Everything about it. I
yes.
mean, how many times do you walk? I asked my students the other night, this is truth. Okay. I asked my students the
Uh-huh.
other night, what color were the flowers when you were walking up to my office? Not one of
Mm.
them could answer.
Wow.
That's how much we bypass nature,
Mhm.
and so when we left, they all wanted to look and they got a
Yeah.
moment of just being in it, just
Hmm.
for a moment, because they were all so shocked that they didn't know the answer. They started guessing. So when you think about the power of our minds and where we go and what we don't
Mhm.
appreciate and put time into, and then look at what we do put time into, which
Mhm.
is, making the money and, whatever it is,
Yeah.
we're missing so much of that beautiful nature that was
So
given to
much.
us for peace and
Mhm.
excitement and even compassion. We see a little creature that is in trouble, but we walk past it because it might
Mhm.
not be the creature we want to help, that kind of thing. Or we don't even note it. We just keep walking and we are
Yeah.
not present in the now. And this is why, another reason why the spirit world doesn't have the ability to connect into everyone the way
Mhm.
that they want them to. If you're not
Yeah.
present, another little saying, life is in session, be present. Right. And
Mhm.
so when you're not present, you're missing everything. And it's so hard in
Everything.
this world to be present because we're running and we're doing and we're doing and we're trying instead of just breathing and being there. So
Yeah.
we miss so much of nature is my point. So much.
Oh my God, you're so, I mean, I just discovered nature, about a decade ago when I became present. And now it is like a present because I feel like
Yes.
it's almost two different worlds. So
Hmm.
I'm in this house and I'm busy and I'm doing the things and cleaning. And then when I have to take my dogs outside, everything shifts. And it's like I leave all of that.
It's just that we have been trained to have a lack of presence in what we've been given. And, when people are in deep grief, I tell them, nature is your friend, being out in
Mhm.
nature and experiencing beauty. And they have trouble
Yeah.
getting, moving and they're in slow-mo basically. And,
Yeah.
I tell them just give it a minute. And when you feel that darkness, step outside. I don't care if you're in your jammies, step outside and just breathe. And it does help them because it offers us so
Yeah.
much, it spikes our senses, all of our
Yeah.
senses. Yeah.
Right. All of the elements,
Hmm.
you start to connect with all of it. Gosh, it's just
Hmm.
so true. It's so beautiful. I want to go in the backyard.
I know.
I'm like, I want to
I
go in
know.
my backyard,
Makes me want to
but I
go
want to
look at
make
the
it look pretty.
flowers, the colors.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Over COVID, I did something I've never done before. So when my little one was in, I think, kindergarten for Mother's Day or whatever, she brought me home this little card, and inside was like one of those little packets of sunflowers, like the giant ones. So I planted them along the back fence, but I never let them grow. Like when they would start growing, I saw them as weeds and, I'd have them pull them or mow over them or whatever. Well, during COVID, for whatever reason, I guess because we weren't having a lot going on, I let them grow. I let them go. I mean, you would not imagine the beauty and the yellow birds. I've never had bright yellow birds before. There were bright yellow birds all over my backyard. It was now I didn't do it last year or the year before. I didn't, I went back on my word only because they take over
Guilty.
everything, right?
That's the goal, right? Is to let go and allow in some
Mm,
way, so you've got a good lesson
yeah.
in that. I've been alive on this planet 65 years. Over that time, just the evolution of learning and
Yeah.
recreating ourselves over and over so that we can be better and be more has been
Mm.
extremely empowering.
But
Yeah.
it's such a gift that you have. And how long have you been doing it?
Well, I've been doing it my whole life,
Yeah,
if I'm
since that
honest, but
experience. Yeah.
yes. But I think I don't keep count, but it's close to 20 some years that I've stepped out
Yeah.
of doing grief and addiction, although I'm back into doing grief
Yeah.
work, because it does intertwine, doing grief
Hmm.
therapy and mediumship. But, I think people think that we walk around and hear spirits all the time and we're, tapping into everyone. And that's not true either. I do
Hmm.
life and, depending upon the
Yeah.
circumstances and where I am and what I'm doing, I allow, it's kind of a dial. We turn up and down, and we learned to do that. When
Hmm.
I was little, I didn't know how. So it was just,
Right.
chaotic, chaos,
Yeah.
that's what it was. And, as you get older, you learn to manage that by twisting that dial. So when you're in a live
Yeah.
event, obviously you've got it way up as high as you can get it.
Hmm.
People say, do you see I'll go somewhere and they go, do you see someone around me? And I go, it doesn't work that way. That I
Right.
just tap in whenever I'm anywhere because I'm having a human experience and I want that human experience. When I'm up here for too long in that
Hmm.
vibration, I get exhausted. And most
Yeah.
people say to me, they get revitalized, and I used to. But
Hmm.
when I allow it to be so strong at all times and I'm trying to live my human
Yeah.
life, it's very exhausting to push it away and push it away. So I've learned to turn that down and it's empowered me.
Mm.
But, having the experience I had as a child, I think when I came back, I just, I couldn't control it at all, not at
Right.
all.
Yeah.
And I had to go to teachers to learn to not be in that space 24/7. I tell people,
Right.
I'm half in, I'm half out all the time. I'm always in that space
I
where I could
say
just
that too.
pop. Yeah, I could just pop, right? So it's a constant need to ground myself back into this earth or ground myself into that vibration. So, depending
Wow.
upon what I'm doing.
I'm not a medium though, but I tell you what's funny is my house is very active, always has been. And we all know it, especially me and my girls. And whenever something is happening a lot, I'll be like, listen, dude, I'm too busy for this. That's not my work. You need to go down the street. I know a medium down the street you can go see. I'm like, I'm not your girl.
Yeah, but
I'm
when
like,
you
I
say
don't
that, it's
not.
so funny to me because you just said I'm not a medium, but here you are getting mediumistic
You're right.
information. So we
Yeah.
all are in some way. It's just a matter
Right.
of are we going to utilize it in this lifetime? And that's a
Yeah.
choice. Truly, it
Right.
is. We
But you
may
do
have
have to
different
make
levels.
boundaries. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
But if I just let it awry, that it would be
Yes.
maybe disturbing in my life.
Yeah.
I don't have time for this. Everybody needs to clear out. I have to be in my space right now.
I get
Yeah.
it because that's me too. I'm like, I don't have time right now. Please stop
Right.
talking. I need to
I got
concentrate on what
grocery
I'm
shopping
doing.
to do.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's a lot of stress
Wow.
to be a medium, honestly. I think that we have
Yeah.
such a huge responsibility. And I know for me, I take it so seriously. And to let someone down that's coming would be horrifying to me that they would leave not knowing that the spirit world exists because that's part of my job to let them know, to teach them. And then I say, well, if it's not as perfect as I want it to be, I have to remind myself that they know exactly what that person needs to hear. That, my humanness goes, no, no, I need to do better. And I'm one of those. I want to read at 99%, not 50%, so that if I'm not well, I don't get sleep, etc. I can get to that
Yeah.
50% easily. So, I can, if my energy is low that day or whatever, because I'm having a human experience. And so I'm not always at the peak of my energy. And
Mm.
so, my goal is always to be way up here. So it puts a lot of pressure on me. And
Yeah.
I'm learning, over all these years that I can't do that to myself. And,
Mm.
it's strange to me because the people that I read that I think that was not as good as it should have been, and I feel like I didn't give them what they need, they're the ones that usually write in my Yelp or they call me or they send me a letter saying it was the best experience of their life. And I think, wow,
Mm.
I really don't know what they need to hear. That's not my job. My job is to deliver the mail, not open it.
Wow.
And when I realize that my job is just to deliver and that they get what they need, I calm down or I relax in my reading instead of that pressure. So as I teach
Mm.
people, I have to also teach myself on a daily basis, to take care of me in that way. So mediums, we have a lot to accomplish, but we have a lot to look at and to not allow ourselves to slide into the I'm not good enough. I screwed up, I missed that sign, things
Right.
like that, and just let it be what it is, because those are
Mhm.
usually the reads that are the best.
I agree. I have dreams that I'm just figuring out from like 5 years ago. Like you never know
Yes.
what those
Yes.
messages might be. And I feel like synchronicity is one of my greatest strengths. But then what is that? That's just presence.
Exactly. I love that. That was so good. You're 100% right. That's what it is. It's being
Yeah.
present in the moment and experiencing what we're doing now. Instead of me thinking about, I have more podcasts. I have 4 podcasts today, right? And I could be
Okay.
there. I could be there,
Right.
and
Yeah.
I'm here. And that's the difference, is I could be thinking about, oh, what's the next person going to ask me? Am I going to be too
Right.
tired? I could be in all those spaces,
Right.
and instead being present with the now, with you,
Hmm.
getting to experience you, which you're lovely, by the way, getting to be in that space, uh, and in the now is so
Hmm.
important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's magic there. Total magic
Yes.
there.
Yes.
So infinite life, infinite lessons.
Mhm.
Yeah. That's so.
Yeah.
How many books do you have?
I have an ebook that I
Okay.
give away for free. And that is, they go to my website, which is susangrua.com. It's with a
Mhm.
U. And they can go to the landing page. They'll see pre-order the book, basically. They don't have to necessarily order the book, but, they can go to that landing page and
Mm.
they put in their email, and they can get those free downloads of my ebook, which is really, really good. It's all about teaching and learning what that is,
Mm.
to tap into your intuition, your mediumistic abilities, and all of that, and how to
Nice.
understand your journey. And then I have my book, Infinite Life, Infinite Lessons, and that's wisdom from the spirit world on living, dying, and the in between. And
Mm.
it's it was written by spirit, I have no doubt. Never considered myself a writer, and one day I was, well, years ago I heard, you're going to write a book, and I laughed. I literally
Yeah.
laughed. And then one day I was at the peak of my career, where I was so busy I couldn't even breathe. And that was just, a couple of years ago, actually, that I was just like inundated with, readings. And I heard, you need to stop everything and write a book. And I thought, you're
Oh.
insane. And then I heard it again and again. And so I called my people and said, I have to stop everything and write a book. And they go, what? And I said, I can't tell you why.
They're like you're.
And then it just started flowing from me. And within 6 months, I had a book. And within 2 months after that, I was sold to Hay House.
Yeah.
Just unbelievable how it unfolded. And now I'm
Oh,
on my second book. So, where I call
that's
it my third,
awesome.
if I go with my ebook.
Right.
Anyone
Mhm.
who pre-orders gets a meditation download, gets my ebook. And then also
Mm.
I'm doing 13 once a month. All the 13 chapters I'll be doing on a Zoom for those people that pre-order. So they get
Oh,
to come on live with me and walk through that chapter for 13 months.
wow. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, when are you
So
starting that?
it will start August, because the book comes out July 16th. So I give them
Okay.
some time to read, but it is pre-order. And the reason I did that was not just to get pre-orders, but the reason I did that is because I don't think I could handle 50,000 people on a Zoom, or however many
Hmm.
people buy the book when it comes out. So I
Yeah.
had to limit it somehow so that questions could be asked, etc. So I'm really excited about it. And I have to share this with you because it's so cool. I just found out last night that my documentary that I was in is being put up for an award with the Beverly Hills Film Festival, and we're going to get to
Huh?
go to Grauman's. So I think this is so cool. I always thought it was Gromlin Theater, Chinese theater,
Okay.
and it's
Yeah.
Gra, spelling just like mine,
Like your
man's.
last.
Yes.
No way.
Yeah.
Wait,
I
what
just
does
saw
gras
that last night.
mean?
I don't know what it means. It's my
Is
husband's
it your
last
maiden
name.
name? Oh, it's your
No,
husband's?
no, yes. I just found
Oh,
it out
how
last night.
cool. Just
So
a,
we get to go
yeah.
to the theater and be part of that.
How
And
wonderful.
it's called Beyond the Grave. And I never talk about it. Dr. Eben Alexander's in it, and I'm in it. And I'm in the
I've had
last
him on. I
16 or
love him.
17 minutes, and I do readings.
Yeah.
And we were out in the desert, and it was really, really hot. And I looked horrible. And I thought that would be the documentary that ends up on screen,
That
right?
goes.
Yeah, there's my ego. It's like, it doesn't
Oh
matter
my
how good I
God.
read. I looked horrible, but
Oh,
I'm
well, you
really
are so
excited.
beautiful.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you
that
so
congratulations.
much.
That's awesome. That's so fun. Yeah, I've had on Kevin. He's great. And not for a few years, but my best friend used to podcast with me, and she's had three near-death experiences, and
Mm.
his book was her go-to book. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, to have a neuroscientist actually say that he, experienced the afterlife is a big, huge leap for us.
Yeah.
And I think it put us in a different category in some way,
Hmm.
not just mediums, but NDEers.
Yeah.
I think that
Yes, I
people,
agree.
people say to me, prove to me that there's an
Yeah.
afterlife. And I tell them, prove to me there's not. And then I'll
Yeah.
prove to you there is.
I like that.
Yeah.
You have so many good little things like that.
I do. They're in my book, all
I
of
mean,
them.
I was gonna say
Thank
I
you.
could like quote you, quote all over. Yeah, little quotes. Thanks, Susan. You know what? I feel so uplifted right now. You have such a great
Oh,
energy. You do
thank
remind me of
you.
butterfly. Yeah,
Thank
you have that
you.
energy that just feels yummy. So
Oh, thank
I'm,
you so much. You have the same. So it's probably why, sometimes you get on a podcast and the person's different and it's harder to,
yeah,
but thank you.
yes.
That means a lot to
Oh,
me.
well, thank you so much. It was so nice to meet you.
Take care of
Okay.
you.
All right. You too. Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Sense of Soul podcast, and thanks to our special guests for joining me. If you want more of Sense of Soul, check out my website at www.mysenseofsoul.com, where you can work with me one-on-one or help support Sense of Soul podcast by donating to my coffee fund. Thanks for listening.